All right, thanks for joining us, everyone. If you're just joining us here on the live stream, we're just getting things up and running. So bear with me for just a second here as I get our live stream going in all the right places. It is a little after 5 o'clock, and we're starting some live streaming weather coverage this afternoon, thanks to because I should say of some storms that are popping up right on schedule. We've had a couple of warnings for our northern viewing area. And it looks like we are off and running everywhere where we need to be. Yeah, I think so. All right, so we'll get things going here. It is 5:04 this afternoon, and if you've got some alerts on your devices over the last 10 or 15 minutes, the entire area is under a severe thunderstorm watch for several hours late this afternoon, early this evening. We do have a couple of active severe thunderstorm warnings as well, and this is in our northern viewing area, the northern part of Trumbull County, really from the northern end of Mosquito Lake up towards the Ashtabula line. These severe thunderstorm warnings run until the bottom of the hour, and then until about 5:45 once you're up towards Kinsman, Gustavus, Johnston, places like that. The radar for the rest of our area, quiet in Columbiana County. We are quiet in Mahoning County right now, but we have more storms lining up just to the west over into Portage County that are crossing the county line and heading into the Newton Falls area, Southington as well. If you know anyone that's on Mosquito Lake right now, it'd be a good time to send them a text and let them know it's time to get off the lake. Anyone else who is doing anything outdoors in Trumbull County, especially right now, if you suspect they're not paying attention to the weather, now's a good time to give them a heads up that things are about to turn a little bit bumpy. Things will turn bumpy as we head deeper into the 5 o'clock hour here in Mercer County. It's quiet right now in our western PA counties, but that will certainly change. Now, the setup today, we've been talking about this for a few days. We have a strong cold front heading our way, and while it's been a beautiful day thus far, we've had building warmth. We have just enough in the way of moisture. The dew points have come up into the upper 50s to around 60, and this front is running into that air mass. It's a much drier, more October-like air mass behind the front, so we've got a really good clash of the air masses happening across the area this afternoon. I'm with Chris Serinelli in the Weather Center this afternoon. We're going to have you covered this evening coming up in less than an hour on 21 News at 6 p.m., and we've been keeping an eye on the radar and kind of joking, Chris, that things will be going in a big hurry this afternoon. We're going to go from sunny to big storms to back to clear skies in just a matter of a few hours, and that seems to be the case.
Absolutely, and we were looking at this even as early as or as late as last night. You know, we were talking about the very kind of quick ignition of these storms, and you know, for a lot of people, they said if you're out on the lake, it'd be a good time to become weather aware. You know, for up until about an hour ago, you know, it was a beautiful summer day. I mean, we reached 80 degrees in many locales. A lot of people were thinking there was a crystal clear sky. You know, I mean, what could happen? But you know, if you were with us yesterday, we definitely were kind of looking at the potential for some explosive development, and that's what we've had.
Yes, indeed. The Niles camera, do we have that in camera 1 or 2 right now?
Right now, it is in camera 1.
Camera 1. So we're gonna take a look at the sky in Niles. We've been watching these building cumulus clouds off in the northern sky, building up, and as soon as we reset our camera here, we'll be able to show you kind of what the sky looks like in the southern part of Trumbull County. And we're looking kind of west, almost northwest here, and if you look carefully, you can kind of see some rain shafts coming out of these clouds. And we've been looking at the sky over Eastwood Mall off in the distance with building towers, building cumulus and cumulonimbus clouds out across Ashtabula County. And yeah, these things really went from nothing to being warned in a hurry up into some of those lakeshore counties. We've had some hail-producing storms. There's been a report of a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust at the Ashtabula Airport up there near the lake. So yeah, these storms, you know, they're popping, and they really do mean some business. So let's do a little loop on the radar here, and you know, we're going to focus here in the short term here at 5:08 on Trumbull County especially, where we do have a couple of warnings and also a couple of non-warned cells that are moving towards Warren right now, Howland, and eventually over towards Vienna as well. The more severe weather is with the storms that are closer to the Ashtabula line from Bristol eventually over towards Johnston and Kinsman as well. And these warnings extend up into northwest PA, Crawford County. A lot of warnings up here. There's some big hail-producing storms up near Conneautville right now, and over towards Edinburgh, and right down, getting close to the Mercer-Crawford line in northwest PA. So, just to recap, for those who are just joining us on the stream, we just launched this a few minutes ago, and our entire viewing area is under a severe thunderstorm watch in all the counties in yellow. This watch runs until 11, but you know how this goes if you've been following our coverage for many years now. They're going to start chopping away at this watch well before 11 o'clock from west to east. The watch is a big watch. It covers Buffalo, it covers Pittsburgh, and all the way down into parts of southern PA, all the way down to the West Virginia line. So it runs until 11 because the severe weather may be still ongoing well into the evening south and east of Pittsburgh. But north and west of Pittsburgh, closer to Youngstown, I think we're going to be out of the woods by 7 to 8 o'clock at the latest. For those who are interested, the Steelers are on Sunday Night Football here on 21 WFMJ this evening, and the storms could be around the Pittsburgh area, maybe not at kickoff, but maybe up until about 8 o'clock. Kickoff set for 8:20, and it might be a lightning delay down there in Pittsburgh as the storms exit right around kickoff. That'll be something we'll be watching for football fans out there this evening. And I've joked with Chris earlier, for his sake, I hope there's not a big long delay tonight, because that means he's here even later tonight. If the game's delayed, that means the late news is delayed as well.
Well, after midnight already, and it's just the way it is. Luck of the draw sometimes, especially this time of year. You have these fall severe weather events. That's kind of the roll of the dice.
Yeah, it is.
Looking at a photo from a chaser near Andover. This is just outside of our viewing area, but that storm moving through the Andover area, pretty impressive lowering of the cloud base, a little bit of a flanking line with that. So some pretty impressive structures with those storms that are being warned just off to our north.
Yeah, by far and away, so far the most impressive weather has been just north of our viewing area, from Ashtabula County over into Crawford County as well. But I do think there's probably some small hail falling out of some of these northern Trumbull storms. There's probably some small hail around Bristol right now, exiting the West Farmington area, and there's probably even some small hail trying to fall out of these storms down towards Southington and Braceville, over towards Newton Falls as well. So again, heads up in the greater Warren area, things will go downhill here pretty quickly, and everything's going to happen pretty quickly over the next couple of hours. These storms are moving quickly, the front itself is moving quickly, and like we talked about, we went from a really nice day to a stormy couple of hours, and we're going to be back to clear skies not long after sunset this evening. Every severe weather hazard is on the table, particularly I think in the next hour or maybe 2 hours. As these storms get up on their feet, this is when we have the highest chance of probably some hail and maybe even an isolated tornado. As the evening, or as the late afternoon bleeds into the evening, I should say, this is going to be more and more just a straight line wind event. And don't forget, of course, wind is wind, and straight line winds can be just as strong as a low-end tornado. But as this congeals into a little bit more of a solid line, I think the threats of large hail and isolated tornadoes will take a back seat to those damaging wind gusts. And again, for our viewing area, we think the window is basically now through sometime in the 7 o'clock hour. We should be pretty much out of the woods by 7:30 or 8 this evening. And this may be the kind of the grand finale for severe weather for the year. We don't want to make that call just yet. A lot of times there's kind of a secondary severe weather season in the fall, but the pattern we're heading into in the next couple of weeks will not be conducive to severe weather. It's going to be much more fall-like, if you will, much more October-like. We got into the lower 80s today. I didn't look at what today's record is, but we probably didn't break a record today, but I think we got into the lower 80s pretty much everywhere this afternoon, and that, of course, is above average for this time of the year. We talked on social media some about being in a level 2 slight risk when you see these maps that we show with the yellow and green areas. Basically, this is what we're looking at. Our severe weather risk scale is basically a 1 to 5 scale. And most of our viewing area, in fact, our entire viewing area, was placed under that level 2 slight risk of severe thunderstorms by the Storm Prediction Center. That's a government agency that's responsible for issuing these risks and also the watches. Our local National Weather Service offices, they issue the warnings, the severe thunderstorm warnings, the tornado warnings, the flash flood warnings, things like that. In our viewing area, a slight risk of severe weather, we're usually under that designation anywhere from 20 to 25 times a year, roughly. We haven't had too many of these kinds of days of late, as you would expect in late summer and early fall. Severe weather is not as common at that time of the year as earlier on in the spring and summer season. I was looking back, the last time we did a lot of long-form severe weather coverage, I believe was in August. And, climatologically speaking, I know my head's kind of in the way of this graphic, but, we go from about 7 days worth of thunderstorms in the peak of summer to maybe a day or two at most in October, climatologically speaking. And, speaking of climatology, one of the things we've been posting about a little bit on social today, the tornado risk being 2%, sounds like a really small number, right? But I posted on social this afternoon that climatologically speaking, when you look back at weather records, weather history, the chance of a tornado in the first week of October, it's a fraction of 1%. Very, very small. So 2% is many orders of magnitude higher than a typical October day. So that's not to say anyone's going to see a tornado today, but our tornado risk is elevated, I think, particularly over the next hour to perhaps 2 hours. We have a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere today, Chris. A lot of wind shear, and the instability is modest. It's there. It's enough.
Sure.
But the changing of the wind direction and especially the wind speed with height today, pretty impressive.
Yeah, we talk about these kind of variables. That's what is going to give us a certain type of event. You mentioned the second season, that so-called fall, October and November season. We have a lot of the high shear, low cape events. It doesn't really take a whole lot of instability that time of year to get things going, but if they're able to tap into that wind shear at the lower levels, and that's something that we were looking at earlier, waiting for these things to initiate, but there was that little bit of a variation there in how close the storms initiated to the surface as to whether or not they'd be able to tap into that. So all of these small scale features and all of these little variables can make a big difference when you're trying to get a good severe weather forecast and pinpoint what any one location is going to be seeing.
Yeah, a lot of times the recipe for severe weather is a combination of wind shear and instability. And as we get into the colder weather season, the instability becomes more and more lacking usually. It's not as hot, it's not as humid as it is during the summer, but you can still get a lot of wind shear from the fall, even through the winter. Chris, of course, remembers that January tornado warning we had. In fact, a confirmed tornado that crossed Mosquito Lake, however many years ago that was. That was one of those situations where there was very little instability, but a lot of wind shear, and it was just enough to spin up a very, very rare January tornado that crossed parts of Trumbull County. I believe that was in 2019, maybe? Yeah, 2019.
About 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It was in the morning.
Yeah, it was filled in for one of our other forecasters that day on the morning show, and we had gotten off the air, and we certainly did not have rotating storms or any kind of severe weather. We weren't even in that marginal risk. You talked about those risk levels. We were barely in a general thunderstorm category that day, so it was definitely a surprise.
The atmosphere sometimes just wants to do what it wants to do,
exactly.
and it keeps us humble. That's for sure.
Mother Nature always gets her way.
That's right. So just to review where we are here as we hit 5:16, we have a severe thunderstorm warning that runs until 5:30 for extreme northern Trumbull, and just below that for a few communities below that warning runs until 5:45. That includes the Johnston and Mecca areas. Cortland, a lot of the heavier weather is around or just to your north. We also have a pretty good thunderstorm moving into Champion and Levittsburg right now. There's probably some small hail coming out of this. I don't see big hailstones indicated by the radar data right now, but some small hail, yes, some gusty winds. Also, we're going to keep a close eye on any possible rotation again over the next hour or two. Not seeing a lot of evidence of that right now, but we're going to be watching every scan of the radar, I think, for the next hour or two, because there's enough wind shear that everything is just going to have to be babysat, and making sure it's not trying to rotate on us here in the 5 and 6 o'clock hours. The severe thunderstorm watch runs until 11, like I mentioned earlier, but I think in our viewing area, the severe risk is mostly between now and about maybe sometime in the 7 o'clock hour. Pretty
100%.
much out of the woods by 8.
After the dinner time hour, we'll start to see conditions gradually improve west to east, and the sky will clear tonight, and you will start to notice a change in the temperature as well, because this is one doozy of a cold front. We were talking about this last night on 21 News at 6 and 11. You got not only a much cooler air mass, but a bone dry air mass. You can feel the humidity in the air with those dew points around 60 degrees, and you've got a very dry air mass, dew points mostly in the 30s on the other side of that front.
Yeah, and that's the ghost of Christmas future for us. This is what's coming our way tonight into tomorrow. It's going to be a 20-degree temperature difference between today and tomorrow as far as highs. The air is going to be much drier tomorrow. There's going to be a breeze. It's going to feel like late October. It's going to feel like Halloween time, maybe even November-ish. And, it's going to be cool for almost all week. I think it's going to start to warm up Friday and Saturday, but tomorrow through Thursday. Very, very cool.
Took the liberty of issuing, I did the very first pumpkin spice advisory of the season. So if you've been waiting for that kind of weather, you are really going to like the next couple of days on the other side.
That's right. If you're a fan of sweater weather and all things flannel and pumpkin spice and all the good fall things, you're going to like how it's going to feel over the next few days.
Yeah.
If you're watching us from Columbiana County and areas south of Interstate 80 especially, things remain quiet, but it won't stay that way for long. You'll be some of the last areas that get these thunderstorms if you're watching from the Route 30 corridor, Hanoverton, Lisbon, West Point, down towards East Liverpool, down towards the Ohio River. You're going to be some of the last places that see these thunderstorms. It'll be closer to sunset or even just after sunset before the storms impact some of those communities. Some of the first communities that are seeing it north of I-80 right now.
It's a little bit messy here on the radar, but if we're looking off to the north in Niles, from our Niles camera, we can see a little bit of, I don't know if that's, that base is trying to lower a little bit and trying to kind of, show some striations there a little bit, but...
Hard to say with it being off in the distance. That could be scud, although it's not super humid, so we're probably not going to see a lot of scud today. Scud being low hanging clouds that are oftentimes mistaken for funnel clouds and things that are nefarious, but they're actually pretty harmless. They occur a lot of times when it's really humid outside. So, I don't know if we're going to see a lot of that, but we'll keep an eye on that little appendage that is off in the distance there, looking out in the far distance over Eastwood Mall on our Niles camera right now. The wind data on the radar is, it's messy, but I don't see anything that's all that notable right now in terms of any rotation.
Right. To just mention, while we have a free moment, lots of folks with either family or friends or maybe traveling to Florida, we're of course watching the developments with Milton. We talked about these storms that are in the area today rapidly intensifying. Milton is doing the same thing, and the latest discussion a few moments ago from the National Hurricane Center talking about perhaps a very strong Category 4 just before landfall on the west coast of Florida. This thing is really getting its act together.
Yeah, and here's a look at Milton right now and the eventual track. So this will be a big problem for especially the west coast of Florida. Now, Chris and I were talking about this earlier. At landfall right now, the forecast cone is pretty wide. So right now the center of the cone is right around Tampa, but the cone is, extends fairly far off to the north and fairly far off to the south. But either way, it's going to be a problem for many residents in Florida. And, that looks like midweek. That's sometime late Wednesday. Probably a landfall. So
like Wednesday afternoon, I think. Yeah.
We had a long period of pretty quiet weather in the tropics, but unfortunately, that's coming to an end with all the problems we had with Helene last week, and now Milton is going to be an issue for Florida for sure.
1-2 punch.
Yeah. So again, if you have family or friends down in Florida, make sure they're getting ready for that and taking the proper precautions, especially if they're more towards that west coast, Tampa, Fort Myers, places like that. Back here at home, it is Trumbull County right now that is our stormiest county. We have a few individual pockets of torrential rain here. There's probably some small hail falling out of some of these more intense cores. Perhaps right now, the largest hailstones are trying to fall around Johnston and over towards Kinsman, Gustavus a little bit as well, especially just to their south and west. There's probably up to maybe dime size or maybe even nickel size hail trying to fall out of that storm, along with some gusty winds. We have some downpours, but there's actually kind of a dearth of intense lightning right now, Chris, and that's oftentimes an indicator that the storm is rapidly strengthening and really getting its act together when we see a rapid uptick in lightning, but there's not a lot of lightning falling right now, or not falling, but occurring right now.
Great point there, and that's, again, one of the clues we look at. And I don't know that I've seen much of any lightning with these storms. We were talking about how quickly the updrafts initiated and got going and started producing hail, especially early on. But the lightning, again, as you said, there hasn't been much to speak of there.
It's scattered, but, we're not seeing a real intense core. We're not seeing a ball of lightning strikes packed together.
100%.
So the first tornado warning of the day has been issued, not for our area, but this is up in, northwest PA? There it is.
Crawford.
From Crawford on east, that tornado warning runs until 6. That's for the Meadville area and out into west central PA, but again, that's north of Mercer County. So that's the first tornado warning issued of the day. If you're watching us from, say, Austintown, Mineral Ridge, Lordstown, Craig Beach, the sky is no doubt darkening off to the west and also off to the north. And, this is all non-severe and kind of garden variety right now, but everything's trying to go up pretty fast, so we're going to keep an eye on some of this activity. that's crossing into northwestern Mahoning right now. The plan on our live stream, again, for those just joining us, we're going to live stream here for probably about another 20 to 25 minutes, and then take a break because we have our 6 o'clock newscast coming up at the top of the hour. Any tornado warnings for our area would kind of interrupt that plan or make us adjust that plan. But assuming we don't have any tornado warnings, we'll cut the live stream short here, maybe 5:45, 5:50, so Chris can go anchor the news and I can do the weather in the news, and we'll kind of get our ducks in a row for that. Assuming we still have some pretty strong storms in our area after the newscast, we'll resume live online coverage after the newscast at 6:30. And again, if we have any tornado warnings, that means we're on TV no matter what we're airing. We have auto racing on right now. We have our newscast coming up at 6, but tornado warnings take precedence over anything else that we happen to be airing. Thankfully for football this evening, I don't think that'll be an issue for our area. That's always one of our nightmares when the Browns or Steelers are on our channel playing. Yeah, and having to interrupt that with tornado warning coverage. That's a worst case scenario. That's going to get us some hate mail.
Absolutely.
So.
We've got severe thunderstorm warning about to come out from Mercer County, according to the National Weather Service in Pittsburgh.
So it's probably for this activity that's in northwestern Trumbull right now. So they'll.
Yeah, it looks like there's. Get a different product here on my end. Yeah, there looks to be some hail right over the Mecca area, over the northern end of Mosquito Lake, headed toward the Vernon area, and then off into toward Greenville and Shenango. So seems justified there.
Yeah, we've got a couple of hail cores there on our radar algorithm. As Chris mentioned, there, northern end of Mosquito Lake and off to the north around Gustavus along 11 and over towards 193 as well. We'll take a look at that fresh warning for Mercer County. This is for kind of the northern half of Mercer County. So north of 62, north of Sharon, north of Mercer, and around and just north of Jackson Center. This warning runs until 6:15. It includes Greenville. It includes Sandy Creek and over towards the Venango line. It is because of this storm upstream in northwestern Trumbull County, producing some decent-sized hail and no doubt some strong winds as well.
See, kind of in the last scan or two, just to the air or just to the west of Warren, just about entering Warren right now, a little bit of a perking up of the wind product there. The wind velocity returns there, so there may be a section of that storm that's trying to intensify a little bit.
Yeah, couple of brighter scans, yeah, for sure. The radar data gets a little bit noisy at this part of Trumbull County because we're almost exactly halfway between the Cleveland radar source and the Pittsburgh radar source, and so the beam is scanning the storm pretty high up,
right.
And it kind of returns kind of this noisy-ish looking display sometimes. It's kind of a challenge, but.
And that's always, anytime we have a severe weather episode, and oftentimes in the winter as well, we have these dead zones. I mean, we had about twice as many National Weather Service offices 30 years ago, and then they kind of condensed them all in the 90s, and as a consequence, we have fewer radar sites with these big gaps between them, and, in a situation like this where you need, good observations at the surface and at the lower levels, it gets complicated.
It can be a challenge for sure. Some markets, some television markets have it worse than us as far as radar holes. Much bigger markets as well. The Columbus market, it's a real challenge east of Columbus. Along I-70 over towards Zanesville, Cambridge, places like that, they're really in a hole through there. Our hole is not quite as prominent or problematic, but I oftentimes feel bad for the local National Weather Service offices in Pittsburgh, Charleston, and Wilmington, Ohio, which covers the Columbus area, because sometimes storms go through that area east of Columbus, and you're almost blind because the radar's scanning the storm so far up.
It's important to point out, it's 5:27 right now. Lots of folks, I have a friend in Poland who was asking me about the situation. Folks in Columbiana County, our southern viewing area. The Weather Service in Cleveland is still keeping an eye on kind of the back building of these storms to the south and west. And they say that the development will continue over the next hour or two as this cold front moves through and not completely out of the woods the farther south you go.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone in our viewing area will get a storm before the day is through. Some, it may be pretty garden variety. Some, it may be much more than that. But there's a pretty good chance that in your backyard, wherever you're watching us from, you're going to get rain and thunder and probably a puff of wind at the very least, before all is clear here in a couple of hours. So Again, we're still into the time of the year that people are, doing a lot of things outdoors. Anything from raking leaves to perhaps being, on some of our area waterways. It was nice and warm this afternoon, so hopefully everyone is off of Lake Milton right now, Berlin. The closer you are to the Austintown area, over towards Youngstown and Boardman, kind of our population centers from Boardman and Canfield and Poland up through Youngstown. Your turn is coming here before the 5 o'clock hours through, probably, with this activity that's rolling east along I-76 right now. The worst of the weather remains up in Trumbull. The current situation is non-severe storms, but probably at least producing a little bit of hail and some gusty winds from Warren over towards Vienna right now, clipping the Niles area or just to the north of Niles. And then we have bigger hailstones still trying to fall north and east of Cortland, closer to Johnston, Kinsman, and over towards the Mercer line. And that's why the severe thunderstorm warning was extended over into Mercer County, kind of the northern half of Mercer County, until 6:15 this evening. So there's that warning over in Mercer. And the worst of the weather is just entering Mercer County. So pouring rain right now in Greenville, and then it gets particularly hairy once you get over into eastern parts of Trumbull. And if you're watching us down from anywhere in Columbiana County, really, your turn will come, but some of the last areas to see the storms late this afternoon and especially into early this evening will be areas south of Route 30. So if you're watching from Salineville, Highlandtown, over towards Wellsville, Calcutta, Glenmore, East Liverpool, up towards Nagley, Elk Run, it's going to be pretty close to sunset or even after sunset before some of those communities will see showers and storms trying to push in. It'll be sooner than that, though, as you get off towards the 224 corridor from Berlin and Ellsworth all the way through Canfield, Boardman, Poland, Struthers, Lowellville. And, I can already already give you the all clear from severe in northwestern Trumbull. If you're watching from Bloomfield, Mesopotamia, Farmington, even Bristol, you're probably fine for the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. Once this line pushes through in any one spot, that should be about it in terms of any severe weather threat in any community it rolls through.
Which is kind of the way we like it. If we have to deal with this mess, just get it in, get it out, and
yeah,
just
exactly.
kind of be able to move to the other side of it.
Yep. So, again, stay weather aware if you're watching us anywhere from our viewing area, I should say, over the next probably 2 hours at most. Have multiple and redundant ways of getting warnings, whether you're watching this stream or not, or if you know people who for sure aren't watching this stream and maybe don't pay much attention to the weather, give them a heads up. Hey, pay attention to the weather for the next couple of hours. Things could be a little bit hairy. If people were kind of tuned out, given how nice the weekend has been overall, they may have loose outdoor objects that be a good idea to bring those things in, secure them, tie them down, trash cans, trampolines, things like that. Halloween decorations. My wife is already putting out a bunch of Halloween decorations, and it'd be a good idea if those things are loose, if they're going to get blown around by the wind. It'd be a good idea to secure them before dark this evening. And dark, unfortunately, Chris, at this time of the year is before 7 o'clock now.
Please don't get me started.
Yeah. The change to standard time is less than a month away. I think it's the 3rd of November or something like that. And all of a sudden the sunset will be like at 5:20 p.m. in early November. It's pretty early this year. I think it's before Election Day. I think it's like the 3rd. It's
might be the 4th, but we'll double check.
Yeah. Nope, I just noticed there's a tag on one of the warnings, but I didn't catch which one it was. Let's go back. Oh, it's for up in Crawford County. I noticed there was a tornado possible tag on a warning, but that's up in Crawford. No tags on the Trumbull or Mercer County storms, and what we mean by tags is the Weather Service can augment severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, flash flood warnings with what they call tags, saying that the damage could be considerable or that there's a tornado possible, things like that. They can augment these kind of base warnings with those tags, and so those can be displayed graphically here in our system, and so sometimes we see those, and those really do get our attention. So that's what I mean when I focusing up on Crawford County real quick. That tag says, where it says tornado possible in that severe thunderstorm warning, that's what a tag is. So
they've stepped those up in the last year or two. The National Weather Service really kind of gotten more specific. In the past they would casually mention, severe thunderstorms can produce tornadoes and this and that and the other, but to kind of structuralize their hierarchy of warnings, and some of these tags will trigger wireless
Right, so we'll get
emergency
things going
alerts
here. It is
to kind of give the
5:04
public
this
a little bit of an
afternoon,
extra
and
impetus
if
to,
you've got
to,
some-
to act when there's threatening weather.
Yeah, especially if they issue a severe thunderstorm warning that has a destructive tag, that will trigger devices, and everybody's phones will go off, and that'll really get our attention. It doesn't have to be a tornado warning for WEA, WEA, to be triggered. So they'll trigger WEA in certain high-end flash flood warnings as well, if it's a particularly dangerous, situation.
Be interested to watch or to see the rain totals later on. Just looking at some of the rain shafts out of this Trumbull County storm. I mean, it looks like just torrential downpours. And speaking of flash flooding, I think these are probably moving a little too fast to worry about that. But nevertheless, for as dry as it's been, certainly a sudden torrential downpour would be significant in some places.
This is our Niles camera. We're looking up over the Eastwood Mall here. Kind of basically we're facing due north.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So that's the downpours that are moving through Warren up towards Cortland and into the northeastern part of Trumbull. Off in the distance, pretty good rain signature there coming out of that cloud. Our other active camera right now, what do we have in Cam 1, or Cam 2 I should say?
Cam 2 is going to be Columbiana.
So real quickly, we'll take a look down in Columbiana where the sun is still out. We're saying storms, what storms? And it's 83 degrees, the dew point's 62. So don't worry, your turn will come. And Chris is going to pan the camera around here to face a little more of a northerly direction where the sky is definitely a little bit darker. That's way off in the distance, of course. These storms are up over northern Mahoning and into Trumbull County, but you can see the evidence of them all the way down into Columbiana when we pan our camera around. I know my banner says Boardman here, but this is our Columbiana camera, of course, looking northward along Main Street here in Columbiana. All right, back to the radar, and again, we're going to continue this live stream for about 10, maybe 15 more minutes, and then we'll have to cut it off to get set for the newscast. Hope you'll join us for more weather coverage on 21 News at 6 p.m. on the television side, and then after we do our business on the television side at 6:30, assuming we still have some storms around, which we should, we'll hop back on the live stream here and keep you covered online. We will interrupt programming on television for tornado warnings if we get any before the day is through. This activity is pretty garden variety by my eye here. That's moving into Craig Beach and Lake Milton and the Lordstown area, south side of Newton Falls. I don't see any big hail or anything coming out of that. There's no doubt a puff of wind, but this is obviously pretty sub-severe stuff coming into the northwestern part of Mahoning, southwestern Trumbull. We are still getting some hailstones, probably some sub-severe ones in our warned area, closer to the Mercer-Trumbull line in northeastern Trumbull County, northwestern Mercer, closer to Greenville. If you're watching us from kind of the Route 19 corridor over here in Mercer County, you've only got 5 or 10 minutes until these storms push in from the west, all the way over towards the Venango line, over towards Sandy Lake. It's going to be, into the 6 o'clock hour before some of these storms push all the way over into the eastern part of Mercer County. The warning runs until 6:15 for that northern tier of Mercer. It does not include the southern areas. It does not include Lackawanna, Grove City, Mercer, and down towards Lawrence County as well. And again, our central and southern viewing area, it's going to take a little while. It'll be probably after dark before southeastern Lawrence County down towards Elwood City, down into Beaver County, and especially down into Columbiana County, Lisbon, West Point, East Liverpool. It's going to be probably after dark before some of these storms push into those areas. Everyone's under a severe thunderstorm watch in all the counties in yellow that I'm about to show you. That includes all of our eastern Ohio and western PA counties. Now, this watch runs until 11 p.m., but I think in our television viewing area, the watch will be discontinued probably by 8 o'clock at the latest, maybe 8:30, just to be safe. I think the true severe weather threat is probably over in our viewing area in 2 hours at most, 7:30-ish, something like that, maybe 8 o'clock in our far southern area. So this is a pretty quick hitter. It's kind of a throwback to spring and summer here in early October, but it's just a one-day deal because we are right back into fall weather, that is for sure, by tomorrow. I showed you this a while ago, but in case you missed it, we got a huge air mass change coming our way. We'll get the dew point change on the other side of this front. We go from a 58-degree dew point to 36 in Detroit, same thing in Toledo. Much cooler, much drier air. It will be accompanied by a frisky breeze at times tonight into tomorrow. We're going to go from it kind of feeling more like August to it really feeling like mid-fall here in short order overnight tonight.
Be willing to bet if people have sinus issues, they're probably already feeling that.
Yeah, that is for sure. If you're sensitive to weather changes, this isn't your favorite thing.
Right.
Quick look at our hail tracker. We'll do an hour loop on this, showing some of the hail cores that have been most prominent. Now, we've had some small hail in southern Trumbull County, but the most prominent hail cores have been where some of these warnings have been issued already, kind of this corridor up through here, well north of I-80. I haven't seen anything gargantuan, but there's probably occasionally been some nickel-size hail falling out of a couple of these stronger cores as they push through. Do have one active tornado warning outside of our viewing area up into northwestern PA. All along I've been thinking that the highest tornado risk is probably in northwestern PA, and that's come to fruition thus far. This tornado warning runs until the top of the hour, up towards Meadville and points east. Titusville included, Randolph as well. And there's probably some big hailstones embedded in that core as well. So that's the meanest looking storm right now. Look at that hail right there. Yeah, it's pretty big stuff, just east of Meadville.
Even without a tornado, I mean, that's proof of how strong these updrafts are and how high they're reaching. And as Eric always says, wind is wind. You get some big hail and you get some damaging wind gusts. Your trampoline, your tree branch, your car, your shed does not know the difference.
Yeah, wind be wind.
We have plenty of it with these storms. Again, even if they're not severe gusts, they can be enough to knock over your trash cans and knock your decorations around. And we always recommend, as Eric has throughout this stream, secure those loose items, and you don't want to find anything of yours, propelled down the street.
Mm-hmm. We are seeing some, storms trying to get up on their feet. Showers right now from Canton on south and west. This is going to be the tail end of our front, and these may grow into more sizable storms over the next hour or two coming eastward. And so this could be some of the activity that eventually impacts Columbiana County, parts of Mahoning County, and probably Lawrence as well. They don't look like much right now, but the storms that have been prompting warnings didn't look like much when they first popped up on the radar either, and they certainly grew in a hurry.
The next warning may come for Trumbull and Mahoning. Cleveland Weather Service has issued a statement talking about wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour, penny-sized hail running from Lordstown, Austintown, Girard, Churchill, Mineral Ridge, and eventually Vienna in the New Falls area right now.
So there may be a new warning issued here, mostly north of 224. That could be our next man up, if you will.
A little bit more lightning with that, too. Yeah,
the lightning is perking up. We'll get an official observation from the airport. It's always nice when a storm runs right over the airport in Vienna, because we do get, an official observation, a weather observation from that location. We can see exactly what the wind may or may not do. At last check here at the airport, about half an hour ago, it was gusting up over 20, but nothing crazy has rolled over the airport thus far. The storms have been mostly to the north of that location. Our official observations for our entire television viewing area, they come from the Youngstown Warren Airport in Vienna. Now, of course, there's a lot of personal weather stations and unofficial weather observations that can be had. A lot of times, people confuse what they see on a lot of weather apps for actual observations. What most weather apps will use is a computer model. And so, because they have to get a weather app of any kind has to give a forecast for every single geographic location there is. Even if you're in the most remote area, you're going to pull up a weather app and see, it's 82 degrees and the wind is southwest at 5. Well, that's not an official observation coming from anywhere. That's what a computer model thinks that the weather is doing right now, because observations are not taken in every single location. And the official, observations that are taken at a lot of airports, there's only so many airports. And in our area, the only one, of course, is in Vienna, in Trumbull County. And speaking of Trumbull County, we still have an active warning here for another 2 minutes, but we're pretty much in the clear now. Mecca, Kinsman, back towards Bristol, certainly. We are seeing a pretty good storm still around Hartford, and then crossing the county and state line over into parts of Mercer and extreme northwestern Lawrence, but raining pretty good right now around Greenville. Kind of keeping an eye too on some of the wind data south and east of Cortland. Just making sure that this little curly action right here is not going to turn into something. It doesn't look like much right now, but we'll see if that does anything in the next few scans.
The good news is, a couple observations from the Crawford County storm that had the tornado warning. Yeah, they have gotten reports of trees and power lines damaged, but the downstream warning that they have issued for Venango County is going to be a severe thunderstorm warning. They believe that storm is starting to get dominated by the outflow, which kind of suggests, lower tornado potential. So hopefully that's kind of the trend throughout this whole section of the line here.
Yeah. And the overall idea here is that the highest large hail and even tornado risk is probably in the early parts of this event today.
Yes.
When this congeals into more of just a line, it turns into less of a tornado threat, less of a large hail threat, and more of a gust of wind right along the line kind of a threat. And those winds can be strong. They can still do damage, and they can still be as strong as a low-end tornado sometimes. But that's kind of what we expect to happen as we go closer to sunset. We're coming up on 5:45. We're going to stick with you for another couple of minutes, and then we'll cut the live stream short here so we can get ready for our newscast at the top of the hour, 21 News at 6. And
Take a quick look in Niles here. This storm that's over Lordstown, headed toward the Niles area, roughly between Niles, Lordstown, and just kind of skirting Austintown to the north. Has perked up in lightning. We mentioned that a few minutes ago, and it looks like the radar returns are starting to get a little beefier too. So maybe close to issuing a warning from the Cleveland Weather Service as they continue to watch this. They already issued a statement for it again, 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts possible, and some penny-sized hail. So certainly the storm is still getting organized.
Yeah, and so in Niles, you kind of missed out on some of the storms that rolled to your north earlier, but you're not going to miss this one. That is for sure. Let's go back to, let me zoom back in on Trumbull, actually, and show you what we're talking about here. We just showed you that camera from the Eastwood Mall area, so it's about to pour in Niles, where it isn't yet, and already it's pouring Mineral Ridge over towards Lordstown. The structure of this is messy. There's no tornado risk in the short term with this storm. But yeah, Chris mentioned the lightning is perking up for sure. Over in Crawford County, PA, the National Weather Service is reporting that there's a storm chaser. They're watching a live stream from a storm chaser over there. There's multiple trees down. This is in the tornado warning area over in Crawford County. So that's, again, kind of where the worst of the weather is right now. This is well north and east now of Mercer County. But in our viewing area, still some beefy storms to deal with for sure here in the short term, even though the tornado threat in our viewing area is not something we're real concerned about here in the immediate short term. Nothing I'm scanning with any storms in our viewing area really catches my eye just yet.
Which is fine by us.
That's just fine by us. All right, so again, the plan here is we're going to stop our live streaming coverage here momentarily, and we're 14 minutes away from 21 News at 6. Tune in at 6. We'll talk about weather right at the top of the newscast and as needed throughout. We'll have the forecast, of course, for the upcoming week. We'll interrupt programming for any tornado warnings we happen to have for our viewing area. Nothing seems imminent right now. And then at 6:30 at the bottom of the hour, once we're done with the newscast, we'll hop back online and talk about what's going on and cover any warnings at that point. So for Chris Serinelli here in the Weather Center, Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm here bidding you farewell online for now. Again, join us at the top of the hour, 21 News at 6 p.m., either on TV or online as well. You can stream us on our apps and our website on Peacock as well. So hope to see you then. Have a great rest of your afternoon and evening.